Alrighty folks, recently got done reading the book Cold War Blues by Mr. Jim Stark, or T. James Stark, an author, a man I admire, and my admiration grew after reading this. This is the story of Operation Dismantle, a Canadian peace group founded in the 1970s, a group which really shook things up by the sounds of it back in the day being the Cold War towards its conclusion. Operation Dismantle, led by Jim Stark, was a 10,000 strong organisation at its height. They pushed for an international referendum on general disarmament, the goal being balanced and verifiable disarmament and an end to the horror that is nuclear weapons, the potential of nuclear war. Representatives of the nations of the world were lobbied at the United Nations, but Canadian governments were not supportive. Inside Canada, at the local level, 200 referendums took place on the question of balanced and verifiable nuclear disarmament. Over 3/4 of the folks who participated said yes to the proposal. This is millions of people who took part, not just some handful we're talking about here. But in spite of this success, the federal government was not supportive. Then, next comes the cruise missile tests by the United States over Canadian territory. Operation Dismantle takes legal action against the Canadian federal government. This leads eventually to a Supreme Court ruling which had me scratching my head and furrowing my brow as I read the details. I'll let you read the book, available online. Yeah, I found this to be insightful in a disturbing way. What do I mean by this? I mean insightful, an insight into the deceptive, paranoid political atmosphere of the time. Having to deal with individuals and groups with very questionable ethics and political and economic motives, it must have been very hard going psychologically, working in the peace movement under these conditions. I don't know if I could have handled it personally. I might have cracked. In 1984, Operation Dismantle did a campaign during a national election to promote the idea of a nuclear weapons freeze between the superpowers, the US and the Soviet Union. This is a UN-endorsed nuclear weapons freeze. I won't go into the details about the campaign or the outcome, as I feel I wouldn't be doing it justice. What ends up happening to Operation Dismantle is really sad. A lot of unanswered questions and shadowy goings on. The author believes that the Canadian police, the RCMP, had a hand in the events which led to the demise of Operation Dismantle. In my view, Jim Stark makes a compelling case. There's a couple of really disturbing events, which are described in this book as relate to violation of the person. Yeah, by the state or security services. Violation of privacy. Doesn't make for comfortable reading. Some of it is genuinely quite dark. If I were Jim, having been through this, I wouldn't want anything to do with the government or the cops again. That's just me though. I think a life experience episode like this could make many a man very jaded and cynical. I don't have a very positive view of the police or the government in this country, but I digress. One thing which made me laugh out loud, I hope Jim doesn't mind me mentioning this, was his account of Tanya of the Bolshoi. She changed into something more comfortable and I was moved to feel most uncomfortable. That is a classic line. If you want to know what I'm going on about here, you'll have to read the book. Cold War Blues, the Operation Dismantle story, T. James Stark. For what it's worth, I give it my stamp of approval and a big thumbs up. If intrigue and the Cold War politics are your thing, then this is for you. It's a piece of modern history. Informative, insightful, but it won't necessarily fill you with warm and fuzzy feelings, I would suggest. On that, I bid you all a fair and pleasant day. Peace.